Anyone copy? This is Pipeline Camp 7. We need... He's killing us. One by one. We can't get out. The storm... Oh, God, he's coming back.
On February 14, 1988, a blizzard trapped 11 workers at a remote Alaska pipeline maintenance camp. The storm lasted 48 hours. When it finally cleared and rescue teams arrived, they found 10 bodies scattered across the camp, shot, stabbed, frozen. The 11th man, the camp supervisor, had killed them all during 2 days of methodical hunting. Then he walked into the Arctic wilderness and vanished. His body was found 3 miles from camp, frozen solid, still holding the rifle. This is the story of 48 hours of isolated terror and how a blizzard became a killing field. February 16, 1988, 11:23 a.m. Alaska State Trooper Helicopter Rescue 7 approached Pipeline Camp 7, 45 miles north of Prudhoe Bay in the North Slope borough of Alaska. Pilot Lieutenant Dan Kovacs had been flying search and rescue in Alaska for 12 years. He'd seen his share of winter emergencies, lost hunters, crashed planes, frostbite cases. But the distress call from Camp 7 had been different. Panicked, terrified, cut off mid-sentence. And then silence for 48 hours. The blizzard had made rescue impossible. Wind speeds over 80 miles per hour, whiteout conditions, temperatures at 40 below zero, wind chill pushing it to 70 below. No aircraft could fly, no vehicles could move. The 11 workers at Camp 7 had been completely cut off. Now, as the storm finally cleared, Kovacs was flying in to see if anyone had survived. Pipeline Camp 7 was a temporary maintenance facility, a cluster of prefabricated buildings and trailers arranged around a central equipment yard. The camp serviced a section of the Trans-Alaska Pipeline System, the 800-mile oil pipeline running from Prudhoe Bay to Valdez. During winter, skeleton crews of 10 to 12 workers stayed at these camps for weeks at a time, performing maintenance, monitoring pipeline pressure, checking for leaks. The work was brutal. The isolation was worse. Workers described it as prison with a paycheck. Weeks in the Arctic darkness, no sunlight from November to January, no leaving, no visitors, just work, sleep, and the endless howl of wind. But the pay was incredible. $80,000 a year for pipeline workers, $120,000 for supervisors. Most men did 1 or 2 seasons, saved their money, and got out. Some stayed longer. Like Thomas Garrett, the Camp 7 supervisor. Garrett had been working Alaska pipeline camps for 8 years. He was 43, divorced, no kids. He lived for 3 things: the paycheck, the solitude, and control. His crew feared him. Lieutenant Kovacs landed the helicopter 50 yards from the main camp building. The scene looked normal at first. 3 Quonset hut-style buildings, 2 trailers, equipment shed, generator building, everything covered in snow but intact. No obvious damage, no fire, no explosion. But something was wrong. The radio antenna was down, torn from the roof, lying in the snow. The main building's door was open. Snow had drifted inside. And there was blood. A trail of it, half covered by fresh snow, leading from the main building toward the equipment shed. Kovacs radioed his partner, Sarah Chen, who'd stayed with the helicopter. "Sarah, we've got blood, a lot of it. I'm going in." He drew his service weapon and approached the main building. The main building housed the kitchen, common area, and supervisor's office. Kovacs stepped inside. The air smelled like copper and rot. The common area was destroyed, tables overturned, chairs broken, shattered glass everywhere, blood spatter on the walls, the floor, the ceiling.
and bodies. 2 of them. One man lay near the overturned dining table, face down in a pool of frozen blood, gunshot wound to the back. He'd been running toward the door when he was shot. Another man was slumped against the far wall, multiple stab wounds to the chest and throat. His hands were defensive wounds, cut to ribbons where he'd tried to fight back. Kovacs keyed his radio. "Sarah, we've got 2 bodies. Homicide, multiple victims. Get on the horn to Anchorage. We need a crime scene team and a coroner. And tell them it's bad." He moved deeper into the building.
Kovacs found 3 more bodies in the sleeping quarters. One man in his bunk, shot while he slept, blood soaking through the mattress. 2 men in the hallway, clearly trying to barricade themselves in a room, both shot multiple times. 5 bodies in the main building alone. Kovacs searched the rest of the camp. Trailer 1, 2 more bodies. Both men had been shot at close range. Evidence suggested they'd tried to hide under bunks. Equipment shed, 1 body. Man appeared to have been working on a generator when he was attacked from behind. Blunt force trauma to the skull, then shot. Generator building, 1 body. Man had barricaded the door with tools and equipment. It hadn't helped. The door had been battered down. He'd been shot 12 times. Outside, near the perimeter fence, 1 body, partially buried in the snow. The man had tried to run, made it maybe 200 yards from camp before being shot in the back. His body had been out there for at least a day, frozen solid. 10 bodies total. All men, all pipeline workers, all murdered. Kovacs radioed the full situation to Alaska State Troopers headquarters in Anchorage. 10 homicides, 1 missing person, whoever had made the distress call. But as Kovacs walked the perimeter, searching for the 11th man, he found something else. Footprints in the snow, leading away from camp, heading north into the wilderness. A single set of tracks, made recently after the storm had passed. Someone had walked away from the camp, alone, on foot, in the Arctic. That was a death sentence. Kovacs followed the tracks for half a mile before spotting something dark against the white landscape. A body, face down in the snow, rifle lying beside it. The 11th man. The body was Thomas Garrett, Camp 7 supervisor, 8-year pipeline veteran, 43 years old. He died of exposure approximately 6 to 8 hours after leaving camp. The rifle beside him, a Remington 700 camp property, had been fired repeatedly. Forensics would later match it to the bullets found in 9 of the 10 victims. Garrett had killed them, all of them. Over the course of 48 hours, trapped in a blizzard, Thomas Garrett had hunted down and murdered his entire crew. Then, he'd walked into the Arctic and let the cold finish what he started.
Before we go into what happened during those 48 hours, we need to understand the place where it happened and the people who died there. The Trans-Alaska Pipeline System. The Trans-Alaska Pipeline was built between 1974 and 1977, stretching 800 miles from Prudhoe Bay on Alaska's north slope to the port of Valdez on the southern coast. It carries crude oil across some of the harshest terrain on Earth: permafrost, mountain ranges, earthquake zones, Arctic tundra. The pipeline required constant maintenance. Dozens of small camps were established along the route to house workers who monitored pressure, checked for leaks, performed repairs, and kept the system running. Camp 7 was one of these facilities. Location: 70.4 degrees north latitude, 149.2 degrees west longitude. 45 miles north of Prudhoe Bay, 100 miles south of the Arctic Ocean. In February, this region experiences 24-hour darkness,
polar night. Average temperature -30 degrees Fahrenheit. Wind chill regularly reaching -70 degrees Fahrenheit. Storms that can last days. Complete isolation. There are no roads to Camp 7. The only access is by helicopter or tracked vehicle, and only when weather permits. During blizzards, you're trapped. Camp 7 layout. Camp 7 consisted of 6 structures. Building 1, main hall, kitchen and dining area, common room with TV, radio, books, supervisor's office, storage. Building 2, sleeping quarters, 8 bunks, bathroom facilities, a small locker room. Building 3, workshop, tools and equipment, maintenance supplies, parts storage. Trailer 1, 2 additional bunks, overflow, small bathroom. Trailer 2, medical supplies, emergency equipment, radio room. Generator building, 2 diesel generators, primary and backup, fuel storage, critical systems. All buildings were connected by rope lines. Safety protocols required workers to clip onto these ropes during storms. In whiteout conditions, you could get lost and die 10 feet from shelter. The entire camp was surrounded by a chain-link perimeter fence. Not for security, there's nothing to steal in the Arctic wilderness, but to mark the boundary and prevent workers from wandering off in storms or darkness. Outside that fence, nothing but tundra for hundreds of miles. The 11 men. The crew that arrived at Camp 7 on January 28, 1988, consisted of 11 men. Here's who they were. Thomas Garrett, age 43, camp supervisor. Thomas grew up in rural Montana. His father was a ranch hand. His mother left when Thomas was 7. He never saw her again. Thomas joined the Army at 18, served 6 years, honorable discharge. No combat experience, but military discipline shaped him. Rules, order, control. He married at 25, divorced at 34. His wife cited emotional unavailability and need for absolute control in the divorce papers. No children. Thomas discovered Alaska pipeline work in 1980. The isolation appealed to him. No relationships to maintain, no one questioning his authority, just work and silence. By 1988, he'd worked 8 seasons. He was known as efficient but difficult. Previous crew members described him as cold, rigid, and always watching. One worker from a 1986 rotation wrote in a complaint, later found in company files, "Garrett treats us like prisoners, micromanages everything. You can't even take a piss without him timing you." The company dismissed the complaint. Garrett's camps ran smoothly. No accidents, no incidents, just personality conflicts, until February 1988. Leonard Bryant, age 38, senior technician. Leonard was from Oregon, married 16 years to his high school sweetheart, Janet, 2 daughters, Emily, 14, and Rachel, 11. He was a devoted father. He called home every Saturday when weather allowed radio transmission. He wrote letters to his daughters every week describing the Arctic, the work, the strange beauty of polar night. His last letter home, dated February 10, 1988, said, "Emily and Rachel, Daddy misses you so much. Only 24 more days and I'll be home. We'll go to the coast like I promised. I'm saving all my money for your college funds. This is my last rotation. After this, I'm done with Alaska. I want to be home with you girls. Tell Mum I love her. Dad." Leonard never made it home. Raymond Chu, age 29, technician. Raymond was from San Francisco, second-generation Chinese-American.
His parents owned a restaurant in Chinatown. Raymond graduated with UC Berkeley with a degree in mechanical engineering, but the job market was tough in the mid-1980s. He took pipeline work to pay off student loans. He was quiet, kept to himself, excellent at his job. Co-workers described him as brilliant but shy. Raymond kept a detailed technical journal, not personal thoughts, just observations about equipment, procedures, efficiency improvements. The journal was found in his belongings, the last entry, February 13th. Pressure readings nominal. Generator 2 needs oil change, scheduled for February 16th. Weather alert received. Storm incoming. Estimate 36 to 48-hour duration. Routine. Will resume maintenance after storm passes. Raymond wouldn't survive to resume maintenance.
Frank Novak, age 34, equipment operator. Frank was from Minnesota, engaged to a woman named Lisa, wedding planned for June 1988. Frank had worked 3 seasons in Alaska. He was saving money for a house. He and Lisa had picked out a small place in Duluth, nothing fancy, but theirs. Frank was the optimist of the crew, always cheerful, always cooking special meals for everyone when Garrett allowed it. He'd brought his grandmother's recipes and tried to make the camp feel less like prison. His fiancée Lisa kept all his letters. In one, dated February 8th, he wrote, "Lisa, 4 more weeks and I'm flying home to you. Then never again. This is it. Last rotation. We'll get married, buy our house, start our life. I can't wait to wake up next to you every morning instead of these grumpy pipeline guys. Love you forever, Frank." Frank died on Valentine's Day. He never saw his bride. Walter Kline, age 41, maintenance worker. Walter was from Pennsylvania, widower. His wife Linda had died of breast cancer in 1985. They had 3 children, all grown, all living their own lives. After Linda died, Walter didn't know what to do with himself. The house felt empty. He couldn't stand the silence. He took pipeline work to stay busy, to not think, to exhaust himself so thoroughly that sleep came without dreams. Walter was quiet, sad, but kind. He told long stories about Linda when he'd had a few drinks, how they met, how she laughed, how much he missed her. A co-worker later told investigators, Walter talked about joining her, not suicide, just he wasn't afraid of dying. Said he'd be okay with it if his time came. I think part of him wanted it. Walter got his wish in the worst possible way. Gregory Lane, age 27, junior technician. Gregory was fresh out of college, University of Texas, petroleum engineering degree, his first real job. He was smart, eager, nervous about the isolation. His parents had tried to talk him out of it. "Come work in Houston," his father said. "Why go to the end of the earth?" "The money," Gregory said. "I've got $60,000 in student loans, 2 years in Alaska, and I'm debt-free." Gregory kept a personal journal. Unlike Raymond's technical notes, Gregory's journal was full of emotion, observation, fear. February 12th entry. Day 15. I don't know if I can do this for 6 weeks. The darkness is crushing. Garrett is terrifying. He watches us constantly, like we're going to steal something or break a rule. I miss sunlight. I miss trees. I miss people who smile. 31 days left. I'm counting every single one. Gregory would never make it to day 42. Hector Morales, age 36, welder. Hector was from Texas, married to Maria. They had 4 children, ages 12, 10, 7, and 4. Hector sent most of his paycheck home. Maria was saving it. They were going to buy land, build a house themselves, give their kids something stable.
Hector was hardworking, faithful, devoted to his family. He carried photos of his children in his wallet, showed them to anyone who'd look. "This is Hector Jr.," he'd say, "and this is Maria, named after her mama, and that's Miguel and little Rosa." His wallet was found in his bunk after the massacre, blood-stained but intact. The photos were still there. Neil Foster, age 31, electrician. Neil was from Anchorage, one of the few who was actually from Alaska. He'd grown up in Fairbanks. He understood the cold, the darkness, the isolation. It didn't bother him the way it bothered outsiders. Neil was practical, skilled, good in emergencies. He was also an amateur photographer. He documented camp life with a 35mm camera, landscapes, northern lights, candid shots of the crew. His camera was found in his trailer. The last roll of film, developed later by investigators, showed the crew eating dinner, February 12th. Garrett in his office, scowling at the camera. The view from camp, endless white. A selfie of Neil giving a thumbs up, caption on back, 20 days to go. Neil didn't make it 20 days. Alan Weber, age 44, cook/supply manager. Alan was from Washington State, divorced, had an adult daughter in Seattle he rarely saw. Alan had been a restaurant cook for 20 years before the divorce destroyed him financially. He took pipeline work because it paid 3 times what restaurant work did. He was responsible for food inventory, meal planning, and basic medical care. He'd taken a wilderness first aid course. Alan was calm, steady, practical. In emergencies, he was the guy you wanted around. But no amount of calm could prepare him for what Garrett would do. Jordan West, age 25, equipment operator. Jordan was from Michigan. This was his first rotation ever. He'd graduated college in 1986, couldn't find work, student loans piling up. Saw an ad for Alaska pipeline jobs. He was homesick from day one. He called his mother every chance he got, wrote letters constantly. February 11th home letter. "Mom, I hate it here. I know I said I could do it, but I can't. The darkness is making me crazy. The supervisor is terrifying. I miss sunlight. I miss trees. I miss people who smile. 31 days left. I'm counting every single one." Jordan's mother received that letter on February 20th, 4 days after her son's body was found. Owen Phillips, age 39, technician. Owen was from Montana, married to Beth, one son, age 8. Owen had worked pipeline camps for 4 years. This was supposed to be his last rotation. He'd promised Beth he was done after this. "I'm 40 next year," he'd told her. "Time to come home, be a real father to Owen Jr." Owen was steady, reliable, good with people. He'd worked with Garrett twice before. He didn't like the man, but he could manage. At least, he thought he could. Owen Phillips died trying to reason with a madman. 11 men, different backgrounds, different reasons for being there, but all trapped in the same place when Thomas Garrett snapped. 10 would die in 48 hours. The 11th, Garrett himself, would die in the snow, alone, 3 miles from the camp he'd turned into a killing field.
February 13th, 1988, 6 p.m. The National Weather Service issued a blizzard warning for Alaska's North Slope. Major storm system moving in from the Beaufort Sea. Expected duration, 36 to 48 hours. Wind speeds 60 to 80 miles per hour with gusts over 100 miles per hour. Temperature drop to minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit with wind chill approaching minus 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Visibility near zero. All helicopter operations suspended. No ground travel advised. Camp 7 received the warning at 6:15 p.m. Garrett called a meeting in the main hall. Garrett stood at the front of the room. The 10 men sat at tables, listening. "Storm's coming. Big one.
We're going to be stuck here for 2 days minimum, maybe 3. Here's the protocol. 1. Nobody goes outside unless absolutely necessary. If you have to, you clip on to the safety rope and you take a partner. 2. We conserve fuel. Generators run minimal systems only. Heat in the main building and sleeping quarters. Everything else shuts down. 3. All work stops. We hunker down and wait it out. 4. I'm in charge. You follow my orders. No arguments, no exceptions. Anyone got a problem with that? Nobody spoke. Gregory Lane, the 27-year-old engineer, wrote in his journal later. Nobody said anything. What could we say? He's right. Storms like this can kill you in minutes if you're stupid. But the way he said it, like he wanted someone to argue just so he could put them in their place. I don't like this. Something feels off about Garrett. Has for days. The meeting ended at 6:45 p.m. The storm hit at 7:30 p.m. Hour 1, 7:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. The blizzard slammed into Camp 7 with the force of a freight train. Wind speeds jumped from 20 miles per hour to 70 in minutes. The temperature dropped from minus 25 degrees F to minus 42 degrees F. Snow didn't fall. It flew horizontally, driven by Arctic wind, turning the air into a white wall. Inside the main building, the crew gathered. Alan Weber cooked an early dinner, canned chili, cornbread, coffee, comfort food. The men ate, played cards, tried to ignore the howling outside. Jordan West, the 25-year-old rookie, was visibly nervous. How long do these storms usually last? Couple days, said Neil. We'll be fine. Buildings are solid. We've got food, heat, power. Just boring, that's all. Garrett, sitting in the corner with a cup of coffee, glared at them. Keep the noise down. Some of us are trying to think. The room went quiet. Hour 3, 9:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. The storm intensified. Wind speeds hit 85 miles per hour. The main building shook. Metal groaned. Snow forced its way through tiny gaps around doors and windows. The lights flickered. Generator 1 is struggling, Owen Phillips said. He was monitoring the systems panel. The wind's affecting the exhaust venting. Garrett stood. I'll check it. I'll go with you, Leonard Bryant offered. Protocol says, I don't need help, Garrett snapped. I've been doing this for 8 years. Stay here. He pulled on his parka and stepped into the Arctic night, alone, against protocol. He returned 15 minutes later, covered in snow, face red from cold. Generators fine, stop worrying, but the lights kept flickering.
Hour 6, 12:30 a.m., February 14th. Most of the crew had gone to bed. 6 men remained in the main hole. Garrett, Leonard Bryant, Hector Morales, Gregory Lane, Raymond Chu, and Frank Novak. They were playing poker, nothing serious, just something to do. Garrett was losing, badly. After losing the 5th hand in a row, he threw his cards down. You're cheating. The room froze. Frank Novak, who'd been dealing, looked confused. What? You heard me. You're dealing from the bottom. Tom, I'm not. Don't lie to me. Garrett stood, knocking his chair backward. I've watched you. You think I'm stupid? Leonard Bryant stood too, hands up, trying to de-escalate. Tom, nobody's cheating. We're playing for nothing. It's just cards. It's not about the cards. Garrett's voice was shaking now. It's about respect, about following rules, about doing what you're told, and none of you have any respect. Hector Morales spoke quietly. Tom, you should get some sleep. Storm's making everyone tense. Let's just... Garrett grabbed his coffee cup and threw it across the room. It shattered against the wall. Get out, Garrett said, voice low and dangerous. All of you, get to the sleeping quarters, now. The men didn't argue. They left. Garrett stayed in the main hall, alone, in the dark, listening to the wind. Gregory Lane's journal, entry dated February 14th, 12:47 a.m. Just got back to the bunk.
Garrett lost it, completely lost it, over a card game, over nothing. He's unstable. I don't know what's wrong with him. Cabin fever, stress, something personal, but he's coming apart. Leonard Bryant thinks we should radio headquarters, request early extraction for Garrett, get him out before he hurts himself or someone else. But the storm's too bad. No flights for at least 36 hours. We're stuck with him. I'm scared. I've never said that in this journal before, but I'm saying it now. I'm scared of Thomas Garrett. That was Gregory Lane's last journal entry. Hour 12, 6:30 a.m., February 14th. The storm showed no signs of stopping. Wind speeds topped 90 miles per hour. Visibility, 0. Temperature, minus 45 degrees F. Wind chill, minus 82 degrees. The crew woke to a dark, cold morning. The generators were running, but barely. Heat was minimal. The main building's temperature had dropped to 45 degrees. Alan Weber started making breakfast: powdered eggs, canned sausage, instant coffee. The men gathered in the main hall, quiet, tense. Garrett was already there. He hadn't slept. Dark circles under his eyes, unshaven, staring at nothing. "Morning," Leonard Bryant said carefully. Garrett didn't respond. The men ate in silence. At 7:15 a.m., Owen Phillips checked the radio. "Trying to get a weather update," he explained. The radio crackled with static. No signal. "The antenna might be down. Storm probably tore it off the roof." "Can we fix it?" asked Jordan West. "Not until the storm passes. Too dangerous to go out there." Garrett spoke for the first time that morning. "We don't need the radio. We wait. That's all we do. Wait." His voice was flat, empty. Something had changed in him overnight. Hour 18, 12:30 p.m., February 14th. The crew was going stir-crazy, trapped inside, nothing to do, nowhere to go, just waiting. Frank Novak tried to lighten the mood by organizing a cook-off. "Let's see who can make the best meal with canned food. Come on, it'll be fun." A few guys participated. Raymond Chu made some kind of improvised stir-fry. Hector Morales heated up chili with creative spices. It was working. Spirits lifted. Then Garrett walked in. "What the hell is this?" Frank turned. "Just cooking, Tom, trying to—" "You're wasting food." "We're not wasting anything, you're using supplies without permission. I manage the inventory, not you." "Tom, there's plenty of food. We've got—" Garrett grabbed the pan Frank was using and dumped it in the sink. "I said no." Frank stared at him. "Are you serious right now?" "Deadly serious. Get out of the kitchen, all of you. Meals are at set times. 0700, 1300, 1700. You eat what's prepared, nothing else." Neil Foster stood. "Tom, this is ridiculous. We're just trying to pass the time." Garrett turned to face him. "You think I'm ridiculous? I think you're being a control freak over nothing." The room went silent. Garrett stepped closer to Neil. "Say that again." Leonard Bryant stepped between them. "That's enough, both of you. Tom, go to your office, cool down. Neil, let it go." Garrett stared at Leonard for a long moment. Then he walked away. But before leaving, he said quietly, "You're all going to regret disrespecting me." Hour 24, 6:30 p.m., February 14th. One full day into the storm, the crew was fracturing. Some men stayed in the sleeping quarters, avoiding Garrett. Others remained in the main hall, nervous, watching the door. Garrett stayed in his office, door locked, lights off. At 6:45 p.m., Leonard Bryant knocked on Garrett's door. "Tom, can we talk?" No answer. "Tom, I know this is hard. The isolation, the storm, it gets to everyone, but we need to work together. We're going to be here another day at least. Let's just—" The door opened. Garrett stood there, holding the Remington 700 rifle. Leonard's eyes went wide. "Tom, what are you—" "Get everyone in the main hall now." "Tom, put the gun down. Let's talk." Garrett raised the rifle, pointing it at Leonard's chest. "Get everyone
in the main hall. Leonard backed away slowly, hands up. Okay, just stay calm. He walked to the sleeping quarters. The other 9 men were there. Everyone to the main hall, he said quietly. Right now, don't argue. What's happening? Jordan West asked. Garrett has a gun.
6:52 p.m. The confrontation. Leonard Bryant spoke first, voice calm but firm. "Tom, what are you doing?" Garrett didn't answer immediately. He just stared at them. All 10 men, his crew. Finally, he spoke. "For 8 years, I've worked these camps. 8 years of keeping things running, keeping people alive, following rules, doing my job. And what do I get? Disrespect, arguments, people questioning me, people thinking they know better. You," he pointed at Neil Foster, "calling me a control freak. You," he pointed at Frank Novak, "wasting food like you own the place. You," he pointed at Leonard Bryant, "undermining my authority every chance you get. All of you, treating me like I'm nothing." Hector Morales spoke carefully. "Tom, nobody thinks you're nothing. We're all just stressed. The storm, the confinement, it's getting to everyone. But we can—" "Shut up." Garrett's voice cracked. "Don't patronize me. I know what you all say when I'm not around. I know what you think." Raymond Chu, who'd been silent until now, said quietly, "Tom, please put the gun down. You're scaring us." "Good. You should be scared." Garrett's hands were shaking now. The rifle wavered. Jordan West, the 25-year-old rookie, started crying. "Please, man, please. I just want to go home. I have student loans. I have a life. Nobody's going home." The words hung in the air. Owen Phillips stood slowly. "Tom, think about what you're doing. You're a supervisor. You have a career, a life. Don't throw it away because of one bad rotation." Garrett laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "My life? You think I have a life? I'm 43 years old, divorced, alone. I spend 11 months a year in these camps because there's nothing else. This job is all I have, and you're trying to take it from me." "Nobody's trying to—" Leonard started. The rifle swung toward him. "Don't lie. I heard you. Last night, you told Hector we should radio headquarters, get me extracted, get me removed." Leonard went pale. "Tom, I was just worried about you. We all are. You've been under a lot of stress. So you wanted to get me fired." "No, I wanted to get you help." "Same thing." Garrett's finger moved to the trigger. Gregory Lane shouted, "Tom, don't!" Garrett pulled the trigger. 7:02 p.m. The first deaths. Leonard Bryant, age 38, senior technician, married father of 2 daughters, was killed instantly. The bullet entered his chest, tearing through his heart. He was dead before he hit the ground. The other 9 men scattered. Some ran for the sleeping quarters. Others dove behind furniture. Jordan West bolted for the exit. Garrett shot him in the back. Jordan hit the door, blood spreading across his coat. He managed to open it, wind and snow blasting into the room, before collapsing in the doorway. Garrett walked over and shot him again, in the head. Jordan West, age 25, first rotation, died in the snow with the door half open 3 weeks before he was supposed to go home. 8 men remaining. They'd scattered throughout the camp. Garrett stood in the doorway, looking out into the blizzard. Jordan's body was already being covered by snow. Garrett closed the door, locked it from the inside. Then he turned and walked toward the sleeping quarters. "You can run, but you can't leave. The storm will kill you in minutes, so you're trapped here with me until I decide you've learned your lesson." He chambered another round. "Let's see who's next." 7:15 p.m. The sleeping quarters. The 8 survivors had barricaded themselves in 3 locations. Sleeping quarters: Raymond Chu, Neil Foster, Frank Novak, Alan Weber. Workshop: Walter Kline, Hector Morales. Trailer 1, Gregory Lane, Owen Phillips. They had no weapons, no way to communicate with each other, no way to call for help. The radio was in the main building, and Garrett controlled it. They were trapped, and Garrett
was hunting. The 4 men in the sleeping quarters pushed bunks against the door. Raymond Chu was shaking. He killed Leonard. He just shot him like it was nothing. Neil Foster was trying to stay calm. Okay, we need a plan. We can't just hide here. What else can we do? Frank Novak hissed. He has a gun. Alan Weber, a cook and medic, was thinking practically. The storm. How long until it passes? Weather Service said 36 to 48 hours. We're at, 25 hours in? Could be another day. We can't last another day hiding from him, Raymond said. We don't have a choice, Frank said, unless someone wants to make a run for the helicopter. They all knew that was suicide. The helicopter pad was 200 yards from camp. In this storm, in this cold, without proper gear, they'd be dead before they made it halfway. We wait, Alan said. We barricade. We hope he comes to his senses. Outside the door, they heard footsteps. Slow, methodical. Garrett was coming. Garrett tried the door to the sleeping quarters. Locked. He knocked. Polite. Calm. I know you're in there. 4 of you, right? Raymond, Neil, Frank, Alan? That about right? No answer. Here's how this works. You come out. We talk. I explain why what you did was wrong. You apologize, and maybe I let you live. Still no answer. Or I break down this door and shoot all of you. Neil Foster shouted back, Tom, you don't want to do this. You kill us, you're finished. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison. Garrett laughed. You think I care? My life was already over. You made sure of that when you decided to report me. We didn't report you. We were worried about you. Liar. Garrett fired a shot through the door. The bullet punched through the thin material, embedding in the far wall. The 4 men hit the floor. Next one goes lower, through the door, into whoever's closest. Your choice. Come out or die in there. 7:28 p.m. Raymond's death. Raymond broke. I'm coming out. Don't shoot. Raymond, don't. Neil grabbed his arm. Raymond pulled away. I can't do this. I'll talk to him. I'll reason with him. But he's not reasonable right now. But Raymond was already moving the bunks, unlocking the door. He opened it. Garrett stood there, rifle aimed at Raymond's chest. Smart choice. Raymond raised his hands. Tom, please, I never disrespected you. I did my job. I followed your rules. Whatever's wrong, we can fix it. Just... Garrett shot him in the stomach. Raymond Chu screamed, doubling over, blood pouring between his fingers. Garrett shot him again in the chest. Raymond Chu, age 29, mechanical engineer, 2nd year with the company, fell backward into the sleeping quarters, landing at the feet of the 3 remaining men. He died 30 seconds later, choking on his own blood.
7:30 p.m. The fight. Neil Foster slammed the door shut and locked it again. Frank Novak was sobbing. Oh God, oh God, oh God. Alan Weber was on his knees, trying to help Raymond, but there was nothing to do. Too much blood. No medical equipment could save him. Raymond was gone. Neil grabbed Alan. We have to fight back. He's going to kill us all if we don't fight back. With what? Alan shouted. He has a gun. There's tools in here, wrenches, pipes, something. They tore through the room, looking for anything they could use as a weapon. Neil found a heavy pipe wrench. Frank found a metal rod from a broken bunk frame. Alan grabbed a fire extinguisher. Outside, Garrett called through the door. 3 left. Who's next? Neil looked at the other 2 men. When he breaks down this door, we rush him, all 3 of us. Hit him before he can aim, get the gun. That's suicide, Frank whispered. Staying here is suicide. They positioned themselves on either side of the door. Waited. Garrett didn't break down the door. Instead, he walked away. The 3 men could hear his footsteps retreating.
"Where's he going?" Frank whispered. Then they heard it, screaming, from the workshop. 7:45 p.m., the workshop massacre. Walter Kline and Hector Morales had barricaded themselves in the workshop behind heavy equipment. They'd heard the gunshots from the sleeping quarters, heard the screaming. Hector was praying quietly, "Dios te salve Maria." Walter was thinking about his wife Linda, dead 3 years now. He'd come to Alaska to forget, to work, to not think. Now he was going to die here. "We should rush him," Walter said. "2 of us. Tackle him. Get the gun." "He'll shoot us before we get close." "Then what? We just wait to die?" "We wait for the storm to pass, for rescue. That's another 20 hours minimum. Then we hide for 20 hours. But they didn't have 20 hours, because at 7:47 p.m., Garrett kicked open the workshop door. Garrett walked slowly through the workshop, rifle ready. "I know you're in here. I can hear you breathing." Walter and Hector were crouched behind a large air compressor. Garrett moved methodically, checking behind equipment, under tables. "You know what's funny?" Garrett said conversationally. "I actually liked you two. Walter, you worked hard, never complained. Hector, you always said, 'Yes, sir,' and did what you were told. But you still talked about me, still questioned my decisions, still thought I was too strict. That's the problem with all of you, even the good ones. You don't respect authority." He was getting closer. Walter looked at Hector, mouthed, "On 3. Hector nodded. Walter counted silently on his fingers. 1, 2, 3. They rushed Garrett from both sides. Walter tackled Garrett from the left. The rifle went off, the bullet hitting the ceiling. Both men went down hard. Hector dove for the rifle, trying to wrench it away. For a moment, the 3 men grappled on the floor. Walter punched Garrett in the face, once, twice. Blood poured from Garrett's nose. Hector had both hands on the rifle, pulling. "Get it away from him!" Walter shouted. But Garrett was stronger than he looked. Years of military training, years of hard labor. He twisted the rifle, brought the stock up and slammed it into Hector's face. Hector's jaw shattered. He fell backwards, screaming. Garrett kicked Walter off him, scrambled to his feet, and shot Hector 3 times in the chest. Hector Morales, age 36, father of 4, died instantly. Walter tried to run. Garrett shot him in the back. Walter collapsed, gasping. Garrett walked over and stood over him. "You almost had me, Walter. Good try." He shot him in the head. Walter Kline, age 41, widower, joined his wife Linda.
8:15 p.m., Trailer 1. Gregory Lane and Owen Phillips were in Trailer 1. They'd heard everything. The gunshots, the screaming, the long silences between. Gregory was writing frantically in his journal. Owen tried to stop him. "What are you doing?" "Documenting. If we die, someone needs to know what happened." "We're not going to die." "Owen, he's killed 6 people in the last hour. We're absolutely going to die." Gregory wrote, 8:15 p.m. Garrett has killed Leonard, Jordan, Raymond, Walter, and Hector, maybe more. He's hunting us. We're trapped in Trailer 1. Owen thinks we can wait him out. I know better. This is my last entry. Mom, Dad, I'm sorry I came here. I love you. Tell everyone I love them. Gregory. He closed the journal and shoved it under the mattress. If I die and you don't, make sure they find that. Owen was about to respond when they heard footsteps outside the trailer. Garrett tried the trailer door. Locked. Gregory, Owen, I know you're in there. Silence. You two were smart, stayed quiet, didn't cause problems. I respect that. So I'm going to give you a choice. Come out now, surrender. I'll make it quick. 1 shot, no pain. Or I burn you out. Owen's eyes went wide. He's bluffing. Am I? Garrett said.
There's 5 gallons of diesel fuel in the generator shed. These trailers are aluminum. They'll go up like a torch." Gregory looked at Owen. "He's not bluffing." "Then we fight. With what?" They searched the trailer frantically, found nothing useful. No tools, no weapons, just bunks, lockers, a small bathroom. Outside, Garrett said, 30 seconds, then I go get the fuel." Owen made a decision. "We rush him. When he opens the door, we rush him. It's our only chance." Gregory nodded. They positioned themselves on either side of the door, waited. 8:25 p.m. The rush. Garrett opened the trailer door. Owen and Gregory rushed him simultaneously. Owen went low, trying to tackle him. Gregory went high, reaching for the rifle. For a moment, it almost worked. Owen hit Garrett's legs. Garrett stumbled. Gregory grabbed the rifle barrel. All 3 men tumbled down the metal stairs into the snow. The rifle went flying. They grappled in the blizzard, wind screaming, snow blinding, temperature at -45 degrees F. None of them were wearing proper cold weather gear. They had maybe 3 minutes before the cold became lethal. Owen punched Garrett repeatedly. Gregory scrambled toward where the rifle had landed. But Garrett was military trained. He knew how to fight. He headbutted Owen, breaking his nose. Then he grabbed Owen's head and twisted hard. Owen's neck snapped. He died instantly. Owen Phillips, age 39, father, last rotation before retiring, dead in the snow. Gregory found the rifle, turned. Garrett was already charging him. Gregory tried to aim. Too late. Garrett tackled Gregory. The rifle fell again. Garrett punched Gregory in the throat. Gregory gasped, choking, unable to breathe. Garrett grabbed the rifle, stood, and aimed down at Gregory. "I told you, quick and painless, but you had to try." He shot Gregory in the face. Gregory Lane, age 27, petroleum engineer, $60,000 in student loans, first real job, died in the Arctic snow. 8:35 p.m., 3 remaining. 8 men dead, 3 alive. Neil Foster, Frank Novak, and Alan Weber still barricaded in the sleeping quarters. They'd heard the fighting outside, heard the gunshots. Now, silence, except for the wind and footsteps approaching. Garrett was coming back.
Garrett stood outside the sleeping quarters door. He was covered in blood, some his, most others. His nose was broken, his face was cut, his hands were frozen, but he was still moving, still hunting. 3 left, he said. Neil, Frank, Alan. I'm tired, I'm cold, I'm bleeding, so here's what's going to happen. I'm going to count to 10. If you're not out here by then, I'm going to burn this building down with you in it. 1. Inside, the 3 men looked at each other. 2. He'll kill us if we go out, Frank whispered. He'll kill us if we stay, Neil said. 3. We fight, Alan said. All 3 of us. One last time. 4. They picked up their improvised weapons, pipe wrench, metal rod, fire extinguisher. 5. Positioned themselves. 6. On 3, Neil whispered. We open the door, we rush him, we don't stop. 7. Even if he shoots one of us, the other 2 keep going. 8. They gripped their weapons. 9. Neil reached for the door lock. 10. He threw the door open. All 3 men charged. 8:42 p.m., the last stand. Garrett shot Frank Novak first, center mass. Frank went down immediately. But Neil and Alan kept coming. Neil swung the pipe wrench, hit Garrett in the shoulder. Garrett screamed, dropped the rifle. Alan sprayed the fire extinguisher in Garrett's face. Garrett stumbled backward, blinded.
Neil dove for the rifle, got his hands on it. Garrett kicked him in the head. Neil's vision went black. Alan hit the fire extinguisher with Garrett. Once, twice, 3 times. Garrett went down. Alan raised the extinguisher for a killing blow. Garrett pulled a knife from his belt, stabbed Alan in the leg. Alan screamed, fell. Garrett grabbed the rifle from where Neil had dropped it, shot Alan in the chest. Alan Weber, age 44, cook, medic, divorced father, dead. Neil Foster was crawling away, dazed from the kick. Garrett stood over him, aimed. "You fought well, all of you, better than I expected." He pulled the trigger. Neil Foster, age 31, electrician, photographer from Anchorage, dead. Frank Novak was still alive, shot in the stomach, bleeding out but conscious. He looked up at Garrett. "Why?" he gasped. Garrett stared at him. "Because you didn't respect me." "That's it? That's why you killed us?" Garrett didn't answer. Frank coughed blood. "My wedding, June, Lisa." He died before he could finish. Frank Novak, age 34, engaged, saving for a house, killed on Valentine's Day.
9 p.m. Garrett, alone. Thomas Garrett stood in the main hall, surrounded by bodies. 10 men, dead. He'd killed them all. He sat down at a table. The storm was still raging outside. He had 18 hours until it passed. 18 hours alone with what he'd done. What Thomas Garrett thought during those 18 hours, we'll never know. He didn't keep a journal, didn't make a recording. But we can reconstruct some of it from the evidence. At 9:30 p.m., he dragged 2 bodies from the sleeping quarters to the main hall, positioned them at the table, as if they were still eating dinner. At 10:15 p.m., he cooked himself a meal, heated up canned stew, made coffee. At 11 p.m., he sat in his office and went through paperwork, maintenance logs, inventory reports, as if it were a normal night. At midnight, he turned off most of the lights, sat in darkness. At 2 a.m., he was seen, according to later investigation of generator logs, checking the generators, making sure they'd last through the storm. At 4 a.m., he walked through the camp, checking each body, making sure they were all dead. At 6 a.m., February 15th, he made breakfast, just for himself, eggs and coffee. At 8 a.m., he tried the radio, still dead. At 10 a.m., he sat in the main hall and stared at nothing. At noon, the storm began to subside. At 2 p.m., February 15th, the storm ended. At 2:30 p.m., Thomas Garrett put on his parka, picked up the rifle, and walked out of Camp 7 into the Arctic. February 15th, the walk. Why did Thomas Garrett walk into the wilderness? Investigators debated this question for years. Some theories. Theory 1, suicide. He knew what he'd done, knew there was no coming back. The walk into the Arctic was a slow suicide, letting the cold take him instead of a bullet. Theory 2, escape. He thought he could survive, walk to another camp, somehow disappear, start over. Theory 3, psychotic break. After 18 hours alone with the bodies, reality fractured. He was no longer rational, just walking. No plan, no reason. Theory 4, seeking judgment. Some psychologists suggested Garrett was seeking punishment from a higher power, walking into the wilderness as a form of self-imposed execution. We'll never know which is true. What we do know is this. Thomas Garrett walked north from Camp 7. He was wearing a parka, but no gloves, no hat, no goggles. Temperature was -42 degrees F. wind chill -65 degrees F. He carried the rifle. He walked in a straight line for approximately 3 miles. Then he stopped, lay down in the snow, and let the Arctic take him. He died of exposure approximately 6 to 8 hours after leaving camp, February 16th, early morning, right around the time Lieutenant Kovacs was flying in to find the bodies. February 16th, the investigation begins. The Alaska State Troopers' investigation took 2 months. Despite the horror of the scene, the case was straightforward. Forensic evidence. All bullets except one matched Garrett's rifle. Gunshot residue on Garrett's hands. Blood evidence confirmed order of deaths. No evidence of accomplices. Weather data confirmed storm timeline. The one exception. Walter Kline had defensive wounds consistent with fighting back. His blood and tissue were found under Garrett's fingernails. Garrett had a broken nose, likely from Walter's punch. Autopsy results. 8 men died from gunshot wounds. 1 man, Owen Phillips, died from broken neck. 1 man, Frank Novak, died of combination of gunshot and blood loss. Thomas Garrett died of exposure, hypothermia. Psychological profile. Forensic psychologist Dr. Ellen Rodriguez analyzed the case. Thomas Garrett exhibited signs of paranoid personality disorder combined with narcissistic traits. The isolation, darkness, and stress of the Arctic environment exacerbated pre-existing conditions. The trigger appears to have been a perceived threat to his authority. When crew members discussed reporting him for mental health concerns, Garrett interpreted this as a conspiracy to destroy him. The systematic nature of the killings suggests this was not a sudden snap. Garrett made deliberate choices, hunting men one by one, conserving ammunition, checking bodies to ensure death. This was not insanity in the legal sense. This was revenge.
The company response. Alaska Pipeline Services, the contracting company that employed all 11 men, faced immediate scrutiny. Questions raised. Why was Garrett still employed despite previous complaints? Why was there no backup communication system? Why weren't there protocols for removing unstable supervisors? Why were men left alone for 6 weeks with no oversight? The company's response was defensive at first. Then the lawsuits started. 10 families sued for wrongful death. Settlements totaled $47 million. Alaska Pipeline Services implemented new protocols. Mandatory psychological evaluations every 2 weeks via radio. 2 supervisors at every camp, no single authority figure. Emergency extraction procedures. Backup communication systems. Weekly check-ins with independent counselors. But for the families, no amount of policy changes brought their men back. The families. Leonard Bryant's family. His wife Janet received the news on February 17th. She collapsed, had to be sedated. His daughters Emily, 14, and Rachel, 11, were told that their father wasn't coming home. Emily stopped speaking for 3 months. Rachel developed nightmares that lasted years. Janet never remarried. She kept Leonard's last letter framed in the living room, the one where he promised this was his final rotation. She died in 2019. Her obituary listed her as survived by 2 daughters and preceded in death by husband Leonard Bryant, murdered in Alaska, 1988. Raymond Chu's family. His parents closed their San Francisco restaurant, couldn't work anymore. They'd been so proud of their son, college graduate, engineer, success. His mother said in an interview, "He went to Alaska to pay off his loans, to start his life, and a crazy man took that away. My son was 29. He never got married, never had children, never had a chance." Frank Novak's fiancée. Lisa received Frank's last letter on February 18th, 2 days after his death. In it, he talked about their wedding, the house they'd buy, their future. She wore her engagement ring for the rest of her life, but never married. In 2010, she gave an interview. "Frank was my person, my only person. When he died, that future died. I've had a life since then, but it's not the life I was supposed to have." Jordan West's mother. She received Jordan's letter,
The one where he said he hated Alaska and wanted to come home 4 days after his body was found. She carried it in her purse every day until she died in 2003. At her funeral, Jordan's sister read it aloud. Everyone cried. Hector Morales' family. His wife Maria and 4 children received a settlement of $4.2 million. They bought land in Texas, just like Hector wanted. But Maria said he should be here, building this house with his hands, watching his children grow. The money doesn't matter. I'd give it all back for one more day. The others. Walter Kline had no immediate family. His adult children hadn't spoken to him in years. They didn't attend his funeral. Gregory Lane's parents sued Alaska Pipeline Services and won $5.8 million. They donated it all to scholarship funds for engineering students. Our son died from money. We don't want his blood money. Neil Foster was buried in Anchorage. Over 200 people attended his funeral. Friends said he'd loved Alaska, loved the work, loved the challenge. He died doing what he chose. Alan Weber's daughter reconciled with him posthumously. She'd been estranged from him since their parents' divorce. His death made her realize she'd wasted years being angry. She keeps his photo on her desk. Owen Phillips' son, Owen Jr., age 8 at the time, grew up without his father. He became a counselor, specializing in grief therapy. He says his father's death shaped his life's purpose. Walter Kline's late wife's grave received fresh flowers every week after his death. No one knew who left them. Eventually, they stopped. 10 families, 10 men who went to work and never came home. All because one man decided respect mattered more than lives. Camp 7, abandoned. Pipeline Camp 7 was decommissioned in March 1988. All equipment was removed. The buildings were dismantled. The site was bulldozed and returned to tundra. Today, nothing remains except foundation markers visible from aerial photos. The location is not publicized. The pipeline company doesn't acknowledge its exact coordinates. But Arctic researchers who pass through the area say they can still find evidence. Concrete pads, rusted metal, scattered debris. And some say the place feels wrong. Cold in a way that has nothing to do with temperature. Empty in a way that goes beyond physical absence. Haunted.
Psychological impact on Alaska pipeline workers. The massacre changed Alaska pipeline work forever. Before February 1988, isolation was considered a feature, not a bug. Men signed up specifically because they wanted to be alone, away from family drama, away from civilization, just work and silence. After the massacre, isolation became the enemy. New protocols implemented. Maximum rotation reduced from 6 weeks to 4 weeks. Minimum crew size increased from 11 to 16, never fewer than 2 supervisors. Daily psychological check-ins via satellite phone. Mandatory counseling after rotations. Buddy system for all activities. No one works alone, ever. Panic buttons installed in every building. Armed security personnel at larger camps. But the biggest change was cultural. Pipeline workers started talking about mental health, about the darkness, about cabin fever, about what happens to human minds in extreme isolation. A pipeline worker named Marcus Shaw, no relation to anyone in this story, interviewed in 1992 said, "Before Garrett, we didn't talk about feeling crazy. You just toughed it out, sucked it up, acted like you were fine. After Garrett, if you felt yourself slipping, you said something, because we all knew that's how it starts. One guy feels disrespected, feels paranoid, and if nobody catches it..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. True crime coverage. The Pipeline Camp Massacre became a media sensation in 1988. Headlines: Arctic Horror, 10 workers murdered in blizzard massacre. Alaska Supervisor hunts down crew one by one. 48 hours of terror, Pipeline Camp killing spree. The story was covered by Time magazine, March 1988 cover story. 60 Minutes, special investigation, April 1988. Dozens of newspapers nationwide.
But what made the case uniquely disturbing was the setting. These weren't gang members or criminals. These were ordinary working men, fathers, fiancés, engineers, guys paying off student loans, murdered by their boss during a blizzard, trapped, no escape, hunted like animals. The randomness horrified America. In 1992, a book was published, Frozen Terror: The Pipeline Massacre, by investigative journalist Patricia Monroe. The book spent 8 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. Monroe interviewed surviving family members, Alaska State Troopers, pipeline workers who'd known Garrett, psychologists specializing in isolation trauma. Her conclusion: Thomas Garrett was not insane. He was not possessed. He was not a monster born evil. He was a lonely, damaged man who built his identity around authority and control. When that identity was threatened, even hypothetically, he couldn't process it. His ego couldn't survive the perceived humiliation, so he chose annihilation. Not suicide, annihilation. He destroyed the threat, his crew, destroyed the environment, the camp became a crime scene, then destroyed himself. This is the psychology of narcissistic collapse, and it can happen to anyone, given the right combination of isolation, stress, and perceived betrayal. Critics argued Monroe was too sympathetic to Garrett. Victim families were furious. Leonard Bryant's widow said, "She's making excuses for a mass murderer. He killed my husband. He killed 10 good men. There's no explanation that makes that okay." The 1998 documentary. 10 years after the massacre, HBO produced a documentary, Arctic Madness: The Pipeline Murders. Directed by acclaimed filmmaker Jonathan Reeves, the documentary featured archival footage of Camp 7 before the massacre, recreations of the investigation, interviews with family members who agreed to participate, expert analysis from psychologists and Arctic survival specialists. The documentary won 2 Emmy Awards, but it also sparked controversy. The filmmakers used actors to recreate the murders. Some family members felt this was exploitation. Others felt it was important, that people needed to understand the horror of what happened. Raymond Chu's mother walked out of the premiere. She said, "Watching an actor pretend to be my son being shot, I can't. I just can't." The documentary aired in November 1998. 17 million people watched.
Reddit and internet culture. In the 2010s, the Pipeline Camp Massacre found new life online. Reddit threads with thousands of comments. "What's the most terrifying true crime case you've never heard of?" Top answer: the Alaska Pipeline Massacre. One comment, posted by user Arctic Worker 91, claimed, "My uncle worked pipelines in the 80s and 90s. He was at Camp 12 when they got the news about Camp 7. He said every single guy at his camp packed up and demanded to leave immediately. The company had to shut down 3 camps because workers refused to stay. The fear was real." Another user, Jordan's niece, posted, "Jordan West was my uncle. I never met him. He died 2 years before I was born. But my dad, Jordan's brother, talked about him constantly. Said Jordan was the sweetest, smartest guy. Went to Alaska to pay off loans so he could start his life. And Garrett took that away for nothing. No reason, just ego. That's what haunts my family, the senselessness of it." The thread received over 40,000 upvotes, hundreds of comments offering condolences. The internet, for all its darkness, gave the victims' families something: acknowledgement. Their loved ones weren't forgotten. Thomas Garrett's legacy. What do we say about Thomas Garrett, the man who killed 10 people over 48 hours? Some call him a monster. Some call him a victim of isolation and mental illness. Some call him both. Dr. Robert Hare, criminal psychologist, analyzed the case in 2005. Garrett displayed traits consistent with paranoid personality disorder and narcissistic collapse. He viewed any questioning of his authority as a personal attack.
He couldn't differentiate between constructive criticism and betrayal. In a normal environment, these traits might manifest as difficult boss behavior, micromanaging, controlling, but survivable. In the Arctic, in isolation, with no oversight, no intervention, no escape, these traits became lethal. Garrett is an example of what happens when we put psychologically vulnerable people in extreme environments without support systems. He's not an excuse, he's a warning. Thomas Garrett's body was cremated. No funeral, no memorial. His ex-wife refused to claim the ashes. They remain in state storage in Alaska, unclaimed, unwanted, like the man himself. What happened to Camp 7's location? In 2012, an Arctic researcher named Dr. Samuel Torres was conducting permafrost studies in the North Slope region. He stumbled upon the former site of Camp 7. In his field notes, he wrote, "Found concrete foundations and rusted equipment consistent with abandoned pipeline camp. GPS coordinates match decommissioned Camp 7. Site feels off. Temperature readings normal, but subjective sensation of extreme cold. Psychological? Perhaps. Choosing not to camp here overnight. Moving 5 miles south." Other researchers have reported similar experiences. A sense of dread, a feeling of being watched, cold that penetrates deeper than temperature explains. Skeptics say it's psychological projection. Knowing what happened there colors perception. Believers say some places hold on to violence. Either way, no one stays there long. The families today. Most of the victims' families have aged now. Some have passed away, but they never forgot. Leonard Bryant's daughters, Emily and Rachel, are in their 50s now. Emily became a therapist, specializing in grief counseling for children who lose parents to violence. Rachel never went to college, struggled with depression for decades, finally found stability in her 40s. Both say their father's murder shaped their entire lives. Everything is before February 1988 and after. That's the dividing line. That's when life split into what it's supposed to be and what it became. Frank Novak's fiancée, Lisa. She's 70 now, never married. She keeps Frank's picture on her mantle. Every June, what would have been their wedding anniversary, she buys flowers and brings them to his grave. 52 years of anniversaries I'll never have, she says. Hector Morales' children. Hector Jr. is 50 now. He named his son after his father. He's never been to Alaska. He says, "My dad went there to give us a better life. Instead, it took him away. I'll never understand it. Never." The others, most families have moved on as best they can. Some keep photo albums. Some avoid talking about it entirely. Some dedicate their lives to honoring their lost loved ones, but none of them have forgotten. Final thoughts. The Pipeline Camp Massacre is a story about many things: isolation, authority, mental health, ego, revenge. But mostly it's a story about 10 men who went to work and never came home. Leonard, Jordan, Raymond, Frank, Walter, Gregory, Hector, Neil, Alan, Owen. They weren't heroes, they weren't villains. They were just men trying to make a living in one of the harshest environments on Earth, and they died because one man couldn't handle being questioned. That's the horror of it, the senselessness, the waste. 10 lives, 10 futures, 10 families destroyed, over hurt feelings, over perceived disrespect, over nothing. February 14th, 1988, Valentine's Day, a day of love. In Alaska, it became a day of death. 10 men killed, 1 killer dead, and a blizzard that trapped them all together for 48 hours of hell. This was the Pipeline Camp Massacre, the worst workplace mass murder in Alaska history.
a reminder that monsters don't always come from the wilderness. Sometimes they're sitting across from you at the dinner table, watching, judging, waiting to snap.